I walk into the living room, expecting the familiar comfort of home, the soft hum of warmth and welcome. But the moment I step inside, the air hits me, sharp, tense, thick with disdain. It isn't just ordinary family tension, it's deliberate, calculated disrespect. My chest tightens instinctively, the pulse in my neck throbbing with anticipation of what's coming. My cousin leans back in his chair, that smirk curling like a blade. He eyes the dinner my aunt has spent hours preparing, eyes flicking over the dishes as if they were nothing, worthless scraps. Really, Aunt Carol? He sneers, his voice dripping with mockery. This is it? He laughs, a sound so hollow yet cutting, echoing off the walls. The humiliation isn't subtle. It's designed to sting. From the corner of my eye, I catch the neighbors peeking through the window, their whispers barely concealed. Their presence amplifies every insult, every mocking glance. I can almost feel their judgments, like invisible needles pricking at the edges of her dignity. Aunt Carol's eyes meet mine, and I see it. The flash of pain she tries to hide. Her lips curl into a polite, practiced smile, but it's brittle. Her hands tremble slightly as she rearranges a plate, a soldier in polite disguise. Beneath it, I sense the fire simmering, quiet but fierce, a storm she's been forced to contain for far too long. I notice the small things, the sneers barely hidden behind polite conversation, the way her own family undermines her with tiny gestures, subtle cuts aimed to make her doubt herself. Every glance, every half-laugh, every dismissive motion is a reminder. She is not respected in her own house. Then it happens. Her favorite vase, a delicate relic she treasured for decades, is accidentally knocked over by my cousin. It shatters across the hardwood floor, porcelain fragments scattering like shards of her patience. Laughter erupts from the family, cruel and unrelenting, a sound designed to wound. It's not just laughter. It's a declaration. Her efforts mean nothing. I feel my chest tighten further, the air heavy with the mingled scent of burned food and betrayal. Every inhale tastes bitter, like ashes of the life she has built and the disregard that surrounds it. From the kitchen, a quiet sob pierces the chaos, barely audible, almost swallowed by the laughter, but it cuts deeper than any words could. It's a sound that carries decades of endurance, the hidden pain of being overlooked, dismissed, and humiliated in the one place she should feel safe. And then, the final insult. My uncle, standing tall, voice loud and accusing, questions her judgment in front of distant relatives, those who have come to celebrate, not to witness humiliation. His words are sharp, public, deliberate. "Aunt Carol, are you sure you know what you're doing here?" he asks, and the room hangs on her reaction. I capture her eyes in that moment. The despair is silent but searing, a storm bottled behind her gaze. Every flicker of hurt, every forced smile, every tremor in her hands. I record it in my mind. This isn't just an insult, it's a turning point. The moment where patience breaks, where hidden strength begins to rise. I realize, with a clarity that chills me, that this moment will define everything to come. I remember her, Aunt Carol, as the silent backbone of our family, the one who carried burdens no one else wanted to acknowledge. She gave endlessly, sacrificing her own comfort for everyone else's happiness, never asking for recognition, never expecting gratitude. She lost her savings once, swallowed whole by a family business scam, a betrayal that should have broken her. But she never complained. Not once. She smiled through it, bore the humiliation in silence, and carried on as if nothing had happened. I remember the nights of my childhood when she comforted me after nightmares, holding me close while the world outside seemed cold and unforgiving. She shielded me from truths I wasn't ready to face. Her arms a haven I could retreat into, unaware of the battles she fought silently every day. I see her in the quiet evenings, hunched over broken furniture she refused to replace, hands working tirelessly to mend what others mocked. They laughed at her outdated taste, the old curtains, the chipped table, never understanding the care, the thought, the love she poured into everything she touched. Secretly, she dreamed of leaving, of seeing the world beyond our small town. But those dreams were shackled by obligations and betrayals, tethered to responsibilities that others ignored. Every step she wanted to take, every moment she yearned for, was weighed down by the constant undermining of my uncle, who seemed to delight in keeping her tethered. I recall flashbacks of community events where she was dismissed, laughed at, treated as invisible by people she had once trusted. Faces that smiled politely while mocking her behind closed doors, voices that minimized her worth, whispers that chipped away at her confidence. The wounds run deep. She once lent a relative money in good faith, only to be accused of greed when she reminded them of the debt. That moment, that betrayal, left a scar no one could see. But I could feel it every time she hesitated, every time she second-guessed herself around family. I remember her voice trembling the day she confided in me, whispering that she often felt invisible, unwanted, like her presence was a burden rather than a blessing. And yet even then, she carried herself with dignity, hiding the storm inside behind soft smiles and quiet nods. Her strength has always been there, silent and unyielding, hidden behind her politeness, her patience, her endurance. A quiet storm waiting for the right moment, ready to rise. I realize now the fire she's kept buried for so long is the same fire that will one day reclaim everything taken from her, with precision and justice. Every day, the small indignities piled up, invisible to most but sharp as knives to her. Dishes went missing from the kitchen, subtle insults muttered under breath. The privacy she once took for granted violated at every turn. Each slight was like a pinprick, accumulating into a constant ache of humiliation. She tried to resist in quiet ways at first, correcting mistakes politely, asserting her choices gently, but the mockery only grew. "Oh, Aunt Carol, don't bother, you'll just mess it up again," my cousin would say, voice dripping with condescension, laughter following as if her effort were a joke. Family gatherings transformed into arenas of silent torment. Conversations were edged with derision, glances sharp as knives, and every smile felt like a trap. The tension was palpable, a living thing that pressed against her, and I watched as she absorbed it, breathing through it, yet never breaking. Then I noticed the shift. She began recording incidents, quietly, deliberately. Her eyes were cold, calculating, yet she maintained an air of composed normalcy. No one suspected she was preparing for something far greater than mere confrontation. I watched her change. The woman who once apologized for her mere existence became deliberate, measured in her actions. There was a new weight to her steps, a quiet confidence that had been buried beneath years of endurance. Arguments with my uncle escalated, voices raised, accusations flying, but he had no idea she was documenting everything. Every harsh word, every subtle betrayal, every attempt to undermine her authority was being preserved, layer by layer, for a reckoning he could never anticipate. The community began to notice the tension too. Whispers spread about unfair treatment, neighbors exchanging glances, murmuring quietly in the grocery store or at weekend events. Her quiet strength and patience had not gone entirely unnoticed, and eyes were beginning to shift in her favor. She turned to the law, consulting documents, learning her rights in the house she had owned outright for years. Every clause she read, every page she studied became a weapon, a tool for reclaiming control over the life that had been eroded from her. Her demeanor transformed subtly but unmistakably, from quietly broken to quietly commanding. The way she moved through the house, the way she addressed others, carried authority now, a silent signal that the balance of power was shifting. The first confrontation with my cousin crystallized it all. A tense silence filled the room, eyes locked in a battle neither dared to voice. Every glance was loaded with unspoken intent, every hesitation speaking volumes. In that moment, it became clear. She was no longer the woman to be dismissed or mocked. She was the storm waiting to strike, and the world would finally pay attention. Late at night, the phone rang, slicing through the silence like a blade. My aunt answered, her hand steady at first, but I saw the flicker of disbelief in her eyes as she listened. The words on the other end were venomous, a revelation that twisted deeper with every sentence. A secret financial maneuver my uncle had hidden for years, siphoning funds, manipulating accounts, betraying her trust at every turn. She listened in silence, heart hammering, the betrayal sinking like ice through her veins. I watched her face harden, the warmth and patience she had carried for decades crystallizing into cold resolve. This was the moment she could no longer endure, could no longer bend beneath the weight of injustice. Without hesitation, she picked up another line, her voice steady, precise, cold, contacting a trusted lawyer. No tremor, no pleading. Every word was deliberate, every pause measured, revealing the strategy she had long hidden beneath polite smiles and patience. Then, unexpectedly, an old friend arrived. Someone she had helped quietly, selflessly, years ago. Now, that ally stood ready, unwavering, a silent reinforcement to her cause. The room itself seemed to shift, the oppressive energy that had caged her for so long starting to fracture under the weight of their presence. She began to plan with meticulous precision. Every move, every response, every confrontation was mapped out in her mind. There was no room for error, no chance for her enemies to escape accountability. Secret evidence emerged, hidden layers of betrayal unveiled, recordings of whispered insults, messages exposing manipulation, documents proving years of disrespect and deception, each piece a nail in the coffin of their arrogance, each revelation sharpening her edge. The tension in the house thickened, her presence now commanding, radiating control. They remained oblivious, unaware that the storm they had nurtured for years had arrived at their doorstep. Silent, but unstoppable. That night marked the turning point. She was no longer the victim, no longer the quietly suffering aunt. She was the orchestrator, the one who controlled the narrative, the one who would ensure justice with a precision that left no room for escape. The balance of power tilted irrevocably, and the first whispers of reckoning had begun. The day of the family celebration arrived, the house buzzing with laughter and forced cheer, oblivious to the storm waiting just beneath the surface. Everyone was gathered, expecting the usual politeness, the rehearsed smiles, completely unaware that my aunt had prepared her masterstroke. As the first course was served, she rose, calm and deliberate, and began to speak. One by one, she exposed their betrayals, each revelation sharper than the last. Financial misconduct laid bare, cruel pranks recounted in detail, humiliations they had thought forgotten pulled into the harsh light of truth. My uncle froze mid-sentence, my cousin's smirk faltering. Their arrogance crumbled under the scrutiny, replaced by wide-eyed shock and the unmistakable flush of shame. They searched for excuses, for denials, but every word they tried to offer was drowned out by the weight of the evidence she presented. Neighbors who had once whispered behind curtains now witnessed the truth unfold in the open. Silent gasps punctuated the room, murmurs of disbelief running through the crowd, their eyes darting between the accused and the woman who had endured everything silently for years. Aunt Carol's voice remained composed, even as it struck like a blade. Her words cut deeper than any anger, precise and devastating, leaving no room for denial or deflection. "You've laughed at my efforts. You belittled my choices. You thought I would remain invisible forever. You were wrong," she said, her tone unwavering. Legal consequences followed swiftly. Property rights were reaffirmed, restitution enforced, and formal recognition of her authority secured. Every document, every signature, a silent testament to her patience, her strategy, and her ultimate justice. Emotional confrontations erupted. My cousin's apologies came out hollow, awkward, empty, but my aunt's gaze remained unmoved, steady, impenetrable. Each subtle act of humiliation she had endured was mirrored back with surgical precision, every revelation strategically timed to maximize impact. She orchestrated financial accountability, ensuring that no deception could threaten her again. Every loophole had been sealed, every manipulation exposed. The air shifted, charged with her newfound dominance. The room itself seemed to acknowledge the transformation. She was no longer overlooked, no longer dismissed. Her dignity restored in full view, her authority undeniable, she stood at the center of the room. A silent storm turned triumph. I stood behind her, my chest swelling with awe and relief, witnessing the full magnitude of her power reversal. The family that had tormented her now knew the true cost of underestimating her, and I knew, in that moment, that justice had finally been served. The house feels different now. The weight of mockery has lifted, replaced by a quiet respect. The whispers that once slithered through the halls are gone, silence filling the spaces where tension once thrived. Aunt Carol walks freely, her steps unburdened by fear or ridicule. Every movement carries the assurance of someone who has reclaimed what was always hers, her presence commanding without a word. Family dynamics have shifted irrevocably. Roles once assumed are now redefined. Old grudges laid bare, and the house itself seems to acknowledge the new order. No one dares undermine her anymore. The lesson has been etched in sharp, unforgettable clarity. She allows herself moments of quiet relief at last. A steaming cup of coffee in peace, the garden left undisturbed for the first time in years. These small victories, once impossible, taste sweeter than any public triumph. The community that once whispered against her now praises her resilience. Admiration replaces doubt, respect replaces gossip, and she walks through her neighborhood with a dignity that commands acknowledgement. I watch her reclaim pieces of herself she had buried, hobbies long forgotten, passions she had shelved, interests she had hidden behind duty and patience. Each act is a subtle reclaiming of life and joy that had been denied to her. A sense of justice pervades the atmosphere. Her enemies are subdued, their arrogance dismantled, yet the lesson she has imparted remains visible to all who witness. Every act of deceit or cruelty has been answered, every insult accounted for. Legal and financial safeguards now protect her home and her dignity permanently. Every loophole closed, every threat neutralized. The systems that once ignored her now stand firmly on her side, ensuring she can never again be displaced or dismissed. I feel a mix of awe and inspiration, tracing the depth of patience, planning, and quiet strength that brought her to this point. Her victory is not just physical or financial. It is the triumph of perseverance, intellect, and unyielding courage. And she smiles, calm, victorious, unshakable. A smile that carries the weight of every insult endured, every betrayal survived, every injustice righted. This is the woman who endured everything and emerged untouchable. As I tell this story, I reflect on how years of silent suffering can transform into deliberate, unshakable power. Every insult endured, every betrayal ignored, every quiet tear shed becomes a foundation for strength when wielded with a purpose. This journey teaches lessons in patience, strategy, and self-respect, lessons that resonate far beyond one household. It shows how deliberate, calculated action can turn humiliation into authority and despair into triumph. Courage, I realize, is not just boldness. It is the quiet readiness to act at the exact right moment. It is in that precise timing that dignity is restored, and betrayal is answered not with anger, but with unassailable justice. Let this be a reminder. Those who underestimate quiet strength often provoke the very storm they cannot survive. Every subtle contempt, every dismissive glance, every whispered insult is a warning when wielded against someone else with patience and resolve. My aunt's journey has become more than personal vindication. It is a cautionary tale, a blueprint for justice for anyone who has been belittled or dismissed. Her victories are carefully constructed, demonstrating that intelligence, foresight, and resilience are the true measures of power. This story emphasizes empathy and emotional intelligence in navigating toxic relationships. It teaches that understanding, observing, and calculating one's moves can lead to outcomes far beyond reactive retaliation. I invite you to reflect on your own life, to consider where you might reclaim control, assert boundaries, and restore respect where it has been denied. Power often lies quietly beneath endurance, waiting for the moment to emerge. Remember this. If you've ever felt powerless, remember this. Strength is patient, but inevitable. The camera lingers on her, standing by the window, sunlight painting her face. Calm, victorious, serene. Every shadow of the past erased by the light of her triumph. As the scene fades out, reflective music underscores the gravity of her journey, leaving a lasting impression of resilience, justice, and the quiet, unstoppable force of a woman who refused to be invisible.